Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 32 of the Glimmer Gang podcast. We have a great episode lined up for you all today, but first, we have a very special guest with us today. It is the one and only Jack Pattillo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very, very well. It's Patillo.
Patillo.
It's Patillo.
I see. We
I know
talked about this
I
before, and I knew I was
coached
going to
this.
say it wrong.
I coached this with you.
We talked about this.
So you're from. I'm guessing you're from the South.
No, I'm
knowing
from
nothing
Chicago.
about you. Really? That's interesting because people in the North typically say Patillo, but the South they see the double L and they say it's like tortilla, so they say Patillo, and it's like no, it's not actually. So wow, you are proving the exception wrong. So thank you very much for having me on and immediately just ruining my reputation.
I'm so sorry about that. We talked about that. Blake and I were talking about this before, and I asked about it, and I'm like, I already said I knew. Okay, well,
I feel like
so
you
it's Blake's fault
inadvertently,
is what I'm hearing.
Despite you not wanting to do a cold open, Teddy, I think we did a cold open.
I did do a cold open. That is kind of true. Anyways, yeah. So obviously, what do you do, Jack?
Oh man, that's a great question. What does anyone do? Let's get metaphorical with it. No, I work for a company here in Austin, Texas called Rooster Teeth Productions. I've been there for about 14 years. I helped start a group called Achievement Hunter. It was a video game. Like we did initially tutorials, then went to more Let's Play stuff, and that has spawned a ton of different things. We've got podcasts. We've got, I did a theme park podcast for a while called Annual Pass. I'm now still at Rooster Teeth, but I'm with a group called Inside Gaming, and it's me and two other lovely people, BK and Blizz, and we stream 3 days a week at twitch.tv/Rooster Teeth, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 3 until 7 p.m. Central, where we play all kinds of games. I love theme parks. My podcast was about theme parks called Annual Pass. Ran that for about 2 years and shut it down last year just because we kind of hit capacity. We sort of kind of talked about everything we wanted to, and we'll look into expand and maybe bringing it back in the future. But yeah, I love video games. I love theme parks. I love Disney, and so something like this worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah. So speaking of Lorcana, obviously that's why we're all here. What brought you to Lorcana? Where did you hear about it? And obviously you have the history with Disney and all that, but what brought you specifically to the card game?
Yeah, so I had heard about Lorcana kind of offhand when I was doing my podcast stuff, because right around D23 was announced. It was actually when we were kind of spiraling down my podcast. And then, but I kind of heard about it online and whatnot. Obviously the thing where cards got stolen at the con in Indiana. I'd heard about that in the news, but I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to it until one day I had a friend in town from Seattle, and he was telling me he was looking to get a job at Wizards of the Coast, and he's like, "I've never played Magic. Do you know anywhere around here who might sell Magic cards?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure. Let's go up the street. There's a card shop." And so we went in, and I was showing him all these cards, and we were talking about different card games and stuff. I'm like, "Oh, there's Magic, there's One Piece, there's Digimon, there's Pokemon," and I'm like, "Oh, there's this new like Disney card game I just heard about. It's coming out soon. It's kind of like Magic and Disney. It's supposed to be really cool." And the guy, and there weren't anything up on the shelves. And the guy behind the counter was like, "Oh, we actually have those in, but it came out yesterday, so we're keeping them behind the counter because they're so in demand." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah." And like, tell me about it. And so at the time I knew nothing. So he's like, "Well, we have starter decks here for $60 a piece.
Oh, gosh.
And we have booster packs for $20 a piece." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Well, limit 2 booster packs and only 1 starter deck per person." And I was like, "Sure, I'll get 2 boosters and a starter." And my friend's like, "I'll get a starter too, so you can have 2 so you can play with your wife." And I was like, "All right, cool." And bought that, and I was like, "Oh, this is really neat." Took it home. My wife, who loves Disney and loves gaming, she was like, "This is cool. We should go get the other starter deck." So after spending $200 for 3 starter decks and 4 boosters, I then started paying attention to it, and I was like, "This is actually pretty fun." And we played with the starter decks for a bit, and then kind of started getting into it. Started checking the Reddit community on it, and then seeing this community starting to grow. And I started paying attention, and then the collector side of me caught on, and I started going to every card shop and every Target and Best Buy in the Austin area trying to find these things, and it was impossible initially. And then has slowly worked my way into it. And so, I collect, but I also play. And I've made some really, really amazing friends of the community. And here I am now trying to get into casting, because why not?
Hey, yeah, casting, obviously, it's one of the biggest parts about a TCG. I want to work at some point with radio when I'm older, so that's something I'm also interested. But yeah, we know all about the demand and cost. That's just it was crazy having to pay that much money for a starter deck.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's me looking back on it now and being like, oh my god,
Oh
I
yeah.
got so scammed. But again, it was literally the day after it had released, so this card shop was ramping up their pricing because they could, and I just didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So I look back now and I'm like, if I only knew then what I know now, things would have been so much better.
I have to say, $60 is like the highest I've heard for stateside.
Yeah,
I'm up in
yeah.
Canada, and our prices are already inflated because Canada. So $60, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of me. Like I got home, then we started going through it, and then I started looking at like TCG Player, and I was like, oh my god, like okay, so a box is like $300. That's nuts. Maybe someday I'll be able to afford that. And just watching it, like seeing Ravensburger sort of like realize what they had on their hands and reprinting so quickly, like, and watching the prices like go out. Like one of my only negative experience I've had in all of Lorcana and collecting, aside from paying a lot that first day, was on the retail release of Floodborne. I went to a Barnes and Noble about half an hour before it opened. And there was like the second guy who showed up was a dude. I should have known something because he had a Bluetooth headset in when he walked up, and I was like, "Oh, okay, there's something wrong with this guy." But we were talking, and I was like, "Oh yeah, like do you play?" He goes, "Oh no, I don't play that." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I just sell." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, we cleaned out Target yesterday." And I was like, "Oh, I hate you. I hate everything you represent.
No.
This sucks."
Yeah, we're
And so,
not fans
but
of those types to run the show.
No, we are not.
But then we went inside in Barnes and Noble. They're like, "Oh yeah, we put everything up for sale yesterday, so it's all pretty much gone. But we can sell you one booster." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." And so, but the karma knowing that guy burned an hour trying to scalp and he only got one pack out made me a little bit happier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing all of the like videos from like Disneyland and Disneyland Paris especially got hit hard with those.
Oh yeah.
And it's just those types are not the greatest.
Yeah, I got lucky that we actually right after the first set dropped, the first chapter dropped, my wife and I went out to Orlando for a vacation and went to Disney Springs, and they had the gift sets. They had the Mulan Hades gift set, and we ended up buying like 8 of them because like at the time it was still not unknown, but it was still not as popular. And so we bought 4, like one day, went back the next day, bought 4 more. And so that was honestly my initial sort of stock came from that. And then it was impossible to find cards without spending way too much. And so so that's where I managed to get most of mine. So if anyone needs any giant Hades or Mulan cards, I still have a bunch of them that I don't know what to do with.
Yeah, I was never able to find the gift sets either, so I was a big giant card fan back when in my Pokemon days, but yeah.
Well, I guess I haven't seen them, but I guess the binders, they sell the official binders actually have slots for the big cards, right?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. See, I got to, again, if I could find those troves and the binders and the play mats just don't exist. I'm not convinced they're actually a real thing that exists in the market.
Yeah, I saw a few at a card shop I was at the other day, but like they were still overselling them for price cause, and it's just like it's not worth it. But
Well, you do know about the Best Buy hack,
I
right?
do not know about the Best Buy hack.
Ooh, let me give you a little tip. So, if you want to get the D100 set, I don't know if this still works. This worked last week or the week before. If you want to get the D100 set, here's what you do. You go to your local Best Buy, find on the Best Buy website the D100 collector's pack, and say, "Hey, I would like to purchase this." And they go, "We don't have this in stock." And you say, "Yes, I understand. I would like to order it to the store." And then you pay there that day, and they will order it and ship it to that store, and you pick it up like a week later. And it 100% worked. I bought 2 of them that way.
Wow.
So I don't know if it still works. This worked for me 2 weeks ago. Worked for my friend last week. So maybe if you're done today editing this podcast and want to go to Best Buy, give it a shot. But just literally like bring it up on the website to say like, "Hey, I would like to buy this," and then show them the SKU. They can look it up and be like, "Okay." They'll charge you, and then it'll ship to the store, and you go pick it up. So best of luck to you if it still works. But that's how I got mine.
Well, I may have to try that out later today. That's a nice tip to know.
That's why you bring me on, right? For tips,
Oh.
for tips and tricks.
Yeah, always. But no, we obviously have a lot to talk about. Lorcana has been, what's the best word? Storming the scene. Maybe that's a Teddyism. Sean, there's your Teddyism of the episode. Lorcana has been very much on the scene in the TCG scene for a very long time, and we have a new set coming up. We have Into the Inklands, and so we have all chosen a card that is revealed in the past week to talk about. And Jack, you chose Morph. So why don't you tell us about this little guy?
Absolutely. Morph is adorable. First of all, that's the most important thing that everyone needs to know. No, Morph is from Treasure Planet, which is my wife's favorite
There
movie
you
of all
go.
time. So the fact that he has a card, he or she, I'm not sure exactly, has it's a blob of mischief. So they have a card so early is pretty great. And not only that, but it's a rare card that does something very, very cool. So the flavor text on it is mimicry. You may play any character with shift on this character as if this character had any name. So if you've seen Treasure Planet, Morph is kind of like Ditto for Pokemon, where they can kind of represent any other person. They can change shape and form and whatnot. So the fact that they actually used the character's ability from the movie to represent something in the game is beautiful. First of all, props to Ravensburger for that. But what this means is for a 2-cost 2/1, you can drop this card down and then immediately shift something on top of it. Any card can shift. If it's a shift card, can shift on top of Morph, which is a really, really cool, clever thing. And being an Emerald card, we're going to see this quite a bit.
Yeah.
I don't know the full extent of all of the shift cards in Emerald, but you throw that on, throw another color on there, and then you're going to go nuts. You're going to have a lot of like this card is going to be very valuable.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
going to be a very, very valuable rare card,
Mhm.
which is nice to see out there. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty great. I'm excited to see Morph out there. Maybe we'll get a Morph Enchanted as well.
Ooh, that would be awesome.
Ooh.
I mean, that would be pretty sweet, right? I mean, he's very, or they're very colorful, you know. So, but yeah, I think it's an awesome card in the Emerald sets. And we're not like right now. I've been watching a lot of games. You're not seeing Emerald around a whole lot. It's I mean, Amethyst is the go-to, but you're not seeing a lot of Emerald being played. So hopefully, this will sort of drive people back towards Emerald, or at least as a secondary color.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to see it. I think it's a really neat way of taking. We're seeing this a lot in Into the Inklands, where they're sort of breaking their own rules, you know, like with the Dalmatians, and now with Morph, it's like, oh yeah, you can do something completely different that wasn't allowed before. And so I love that we're seeing that stuff, and that's why I really love this card. And this was the most recent card that came out, so I'm excited to talk about it now.
Yeah. Obviously, this changes the game in many aspects. When I first saw it, my initial thought went straight to Emerald Steel discard, where you're able to you have the Floodborns, Bucky and Prince John, lots of profit there. But Sean, you are our resident Emerald expert. What do you think of Morph, and where does this fit into that whole archetype?
I love him. It's a great card. It at the very least creates consistency for several of the Floodborns that we have that don't have really great targets yet. And the ceiling on that's never ending, because the more sets that come out, the more targets he'll have that can take advantage of that. And we're going to see lots of fun Emerald and builds just due to the consistency that he offers at a 2-cost that's inkable. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, like there are many cards in Lorcana that will just get better over time, and Morph is no exception. He is a rare, and I personally expect this card to be the second highest rare behind Be Prepared. Maybe it does jump Be Prepared. Who knows? A rare card, I guess. But Blake, do you have any last thoughts on Morph?
Definitely see him being one of those ones where it's probably good to go ahead and get your playsets as soon as possible of him before, even if he isn't too crazy right now. There may be come a time where he goes absolutely bonkers with something. So I think getting him as soon as possible will be. He just seems like one of those cards that'll really pop off later, and even now. Like you were talking about, Sean, with Legendary Steel Beast, that doesn't really have a good shift target right now.
Yep, exactly.
He gets Morph.
Marv.
Marv. Good morning. Yeah, he gets Morph pretty well. And also the Bell Hidden Archer didn't really have a good shift target, and she's an Emerald.
Yeah.
So maybe she'll finally get some turn 3 plays.
Yeah, I definitely that Bell was one of the cards that we saw off the bat. We got it pretty early for Rise of the Floodborn. Like this could be interesting. Hasn't seen play yet, so maybe Morph helps that. But as I said, we all have chosen a card to talk about. And Blake, you have chosen Aurelian Gyro Sensor to talk about. Why don't you tell us what this new item does?
Yep. A 2-cost inkable sapphire item with the ability of seeking knowledge. Whenever one of your characters quest, you may look at the top card of your deck, put it on either the top or the bottom of your deck. So basically, we saw this effect before on the Amethyst Yzma from set 1, where she quested and you could do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this basically turns all of your characters into her. And effects that just happen when you quest are usually pretty good. You're still furthering your win condition and not having to sacrifice momentum too much other than having to play out this item. So I have seen some item decks start rising up a little bit, especially there's a Ruby Sapphire item deck that's doing okay right now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it'll find a home there, or maybe we'll get a better deck when set 3 comes out. But it seems very nice. And also, just as a flavor thing, we do have a quote from Ventura from the story telling us about the item. It can point you toward lost lore, but if you're not careful, it'll lead you off a cliff. I just love how they're building the world and the cards and furthering the story with their own unique stuff that they're
Mm-hmm.
bringing into the game, and it's not just Disney stuff. They are bringing in their own original ideas to the game.
Yeah, we got launch in a previous set, and this is now the second card that comes straight from Lorcana. But Jack, I'll go to you next. Any thoughts on this new item?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of getting the knowledge and like getting like having our first sort of card where it's like just straight up look at the top card of your deck. I mean, this is going to pair so well with Sorcerer's Hat, which we also got revealed, which is name a card, reveal the top
Mm-hmm.
card of your deck, the name card, put it in your hand. So it's like, oh yeah, the 1-2 combo of that is just that's a free draw basically. And so even then, it's like a free draw if you know you want that card.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going to burn 1 ink to use the Sorcerer's Hat, assuming it's a card that you want. So. I don't know how common the Sapphire Amethyst combo is, but I do like that we're seeing these cards where it's like very clearly these are going to work together really, really well if you choose to play this. And so, and yeah, and also I love the fact that it is straight up a Lorcana lore. It's an original IP, and I dig that we're seeing more of that stuff. It's not like Disney's going to run out of IP. So, but the fact they're still mixing in their own things is really cool.
Yeah, definitely awesome to see the new stuff. Blake is our resident lore expert, and we know that he loves all this stuff. But Sean, now to you. Any thoughts on the Austrian gyro sandwich?
Oh, other than that should be its name. Yeah, it's really awesome. It's gonna make decks a lot more consistent. I'm always a fan of scry abilities,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm a fan. I like it. And it's at a good cost, and it's inkable, so there's very few drawbacks.
Yeah, I think this will fit right well into the aerial item decks, even the decks with Hiram and Popsicle. Like anything that runs Sapphire items, this is going to go straight into that deck, I believe. But yeah, that is Aurelian Gyro Sensor. Sean, I'll kick it right back to you for your card. You chose Della Duck. Why don't you tell us about this Moon Traveling Mom?
So yeah, Della Duck. Sorry, a little tongue tied there. She's a 2-cost uninkable Storeborn ally. She's a 3/3 reckless with no lore. She fits Unstoppable Mom. Sorry, she fits really well into all of the Ruby Reckless cards
Mm-hmm.
already. She kind of fits neatly in there in between like Gaston and Tuk Tuk. She's kind of the fact that she's uninkable justifies her having a little bit higher willpower, as we don't see that on many of the Ruby Reckless cards out there. They're usually a little bit weaker on the back end. So that's nice to see for a little survivability on her end. Also, I do love the fact that they are really diving headfirst into the DuckTales IP. that I loved DuckTales as a kid with Disney Toons and like just I think they were on Saturday morning cartoons. I always watched the movie as a kid. Um, and I know that Della is more of a character from the updated reboot that they did, but the reboot is also phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to see. I'm can't wait to see more of the DuckTales universe, and I think she's a pretty decent card. I mean, we've seen a lot of the Reckless cards already do work. Gaston, Arrogant Hunter, Maui, Hero to All have both seen play. Maui sees play all of the time, so I could see her finding her way into a couple of decks.
Yeah. That 2 cost uninkable will be interesting to play around with because Ruby does have a high amount of uninkables already. So this will be interesting to play around with when deck building. But Jack, I'll go back to you. Thoughts on Deladuck?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on Deladuck. First of all, I was like, "Who is Deladuck?" Then so many people were like, "The new Ducktales. You have to watch the new Ducktales."
She's a real deep cut. If you either have to watch like the new DuckTales or like 1930s Disney. Like there's no real in between there for her. So
yeah, there's actually a DuckTales game you can play at Epcot on the Play Disney app that involves all the new DuckTales stuff, and that's like my only exposure to the new DuckTales, like David Tennant, Danny Pudi, and all of them. But so I need to check out that show first of all. But my second thing about her that I love is that she fits into my characters holding a rope meta, which is my go-to meta. I want to build a deck that breaks color rules, but she's holding on to a rope. Moana holds on to so many ropes. Jim Hawkins holds on to ropes. There's so many characters holding on to ropes right now that I think people are overlooking. I think maybe it's a subtle thing. No, it's not. It's just something I just love spotting. And so, no, it's cool. I mean, more than anything, I love that they're diving into these lesser known characters that we're getting. And it's something like this, like technically she's super old, but she's a relatively newer character to a lot of people. And so it kind of shows that Ravensburger's just diving all over the place. We're going from Aristocats to DuckTales, which means we might get Tron someday, which is all I care about.
Yeah. If we got Tron, I would flip out like that.
I've brought it up before. Disney has a history of cartoonifying their live action IPs. Like it's been done with Tron, I'm pretty sure. I know it's been done with Pirates of the Caribbean. So there's precedent for it.
Yeah.
There was a Tron cartoon, I think, for a bit. So,
there
technically
you go.
It exists.
Boom.
It's a thing. So I have no idea what the contract is between Disney and Ravensburger. So hopefully it's kind of like go nuts, and then Disney will approve whatever. But I can't imagine them withholding certain IP. We've seen them do so much stuff already.
Yeah. But then Blake, do you have any thoughts on Deladuck?
Yeah, just mainly in terms of reckless characters with locations, they're going to be so much better now. I think a lot of things with reckless characters for the first few sets, they sometimes didn't feel too great because your opponent could force you to challenge into something you really didn't want to. But with locations possibly being a big thing, they feel a lot better because they'll get to swing into it and not take any damage, and they'll get to sit around. Especially with her, she gets to sit with the 3/3 stat line, which is pretty solid. So, if locations are a big enough thing, I can see her getting a lot of play.
Yeah, it's a nice 2-drop. I think it'll be really good in limited. I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Having a body, because at least this is for Rise of the Floodborn Limited. It was the board presence was needed, and obviously it is needed in any game in any mode. But it was needed then, and I'm hoping it's needed now because this is a great way to just make your opponent think a little bit more about what they're playing and what they're drafting in limited. Well, I was going to talk about a card we already got, but during our recording, Lorcana released a new Twitter video and released 5 new cards in it, and I'm going to bring up one of them. It is Lucky Dime. It is a 7.
Oh yeah, it looks great.
It is a 7 cost uninkable item. It says in its ability says number 1, you exert and pay 2, choose a character of yours and gain lore equal to their lore amount. The reason this is, I think, pretty big is this is our first legendary item. We have only seen legendary characters before, but I wanted to bring this up because this seems like it could be very good. Obviously, it is uninkable, but there are a lot of synergies here. We can use it with Tamatoa, which we do need a ruling to see if that would be we'd be able to, if he does have like +5, if it would be +5 or the original lore amount. It works well with Scrooge McDuck. Obviously, this is from a DuckTales, so Scrooge McDuck's ability says, "I didn't get rich by being stupid. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play an item for free." So not having to pay 7 is going to be great. Yeah, Lucky Dime. I was looking through these, and this one caught my eye. Sean, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this? Our first legendary item.
I think it's gonna be pretty great. I know that everybody instantly is thinking this thing has a very high cost and it's uninkable, which both things are true, but we've already seen a ton of stuff in Sapphire that loves items. So my question is, it's actually not my question. I'll give credit where credit's due. Jonty was brought this up on Twitter. He is wondering if the Lucky Dime sees Tamatoa uh
Yeah.
lore amount because of all the items out there. So when there's a ruling on that and we can figure out if that works and we can cheat out Dime early, I don't see why this couldn't be an amazing piece to any good item deck.
Yeah. Obviously, Sapphire is heavily going into the item archetype here. I really hope that an item deck does become prevalent soon because there's a lot of options. But Jack, I'll go to you next. Do you have any thoughts on this new item? I don't know if you're able to get over Twitter to see that.
Yeah, I've got it up right now. I mean, it looks great, and I mean, again, I love the idea of our first legendary item. Like that's my biggest thing as a collector side of things. It's like, okay, cool, we're starting to see not just characters but actually items as well. And I mean, again, it just looks fantastic, and it's another one of the Lorcana specific IP cards as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't exist anywhere else, so I'm digging that. I like that we're getting into it, and the idea that, I mean, I love that we're seeing a lot of like love for Sapphire and like Emerald. Like maybe we'll move away from kind of the archetypes and the meta we've seen right now into other colors. So that makes me happy for anything.
No more Ruby Amethyst. Well, obviously, it'll still be a thing,
Please,
but maybe
no.
not as prevalent. But Blake, I'll go to you last. What do you think about this new item?
Well, now we see what we're playing with Scrooge McDuck,
Yeah.
Yeah.
getting this
Yep.
big old item for free. um, yeah, it's gonna be great. Yeah, hopefully it works with Tamatoa like we're hoping, but there are still plenty of characters in Sapphire, especially that have plenty of lore printed on them. So,
There are
hey,
8 3 lore characters so far in Sapphire.
yeah, exactly. So, even in a deck like that, where you just have a bunch of 3 lore, ping
Mm-hmm.
2 to get 3 lore, it's not terrible.
No. And
Yeah,
you can quest with it too, so that's technically 6 if you do choose to do that.
yeah, you use the item and then you quest with the character. That's 6 right there. If you got a 3 lore character,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see if we get a 4 lore character or something you compare it with. Like it, this has a pretty high ceiling. So
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah. I'm excited to see how it's going to work because obviously it's legendary, it's uninkable. So, one, it's going to be harder to obtain in packs, and two, can't ink it. So, it's going to be, and I think the thing is like Sapphire decks, they don't have as much trouble with uninkables at the moment, but again, when more cards come out, more uninkables come out, it just makes deck building that much more difficult, I guess, into where you play your cards, what leaves that is in these decks already, and then these new cards, what replaces those. So obviously, with any new set, that is going to happen, but it is just fun to think about now, like where is this gonna fit in? Because if it's a 7 cost, we have that 7 cost Hades that is already there, and I guarantee you this would be played after the Hades comes down because Hades is good with removal, but there is a lot that can go with this card, and I'm excited to see what it can do. But those are the 4 cards we're going to talk about today. Next part of this episode is we're going to talk about casting. And Jack, like you said earlier, you have been really getting involved with casting. You got to cast with the Lumineers, the Ikkicon 1K hosted by Game Castle down in Austin a few weeks ago. How was that? Can you just like go over what got you interested in casting so much?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a kid in the South, so football was always a big thing growing up for
Mm-hmm.
me, and so I loved watching football, and I loved listening to football more than anything on the radio. And I remember listening to the guys doing play-by-play, and I was always really impressed by that. And I got interested in radio and doing audio stuff when I was younger, and I still love doing podcasting and stuff like that now. And so the idea of doing some sort of commentary play-by-play has always been something I've been
Yeah.
interested in. So like casting, I looked into casting, maybe something like Smite, which is a video game that's really great community there, but I always felt like I'm so far removed from where it initially came out. And so for something like Lorcana, I'm in with the beginning of it. Like I'm here
Mm-hmm.
early on. I love the game. I know all the cards. I played the game. And so I felt like, okay, I'm actually a little bit knowledgeable on this. Maybe I could do it. And then through my friends at Game Castle, they put me in touch with the Lumineers and with Liam and Aaron over there. And Ikkicon was coming up in Round Rock, Texas, which is just north of Austin. And they were like, would you be interested in doing commentary on it? And I was like, sure, heck yeah, let's do it. So Liam and I worked together, and we casted that entire tournament and had a really good time with it. And it was a lot of fun. And it was nice because I've been doing streaming stuff for a long time, and he's been doing Lorcana stuff for a long time. And so our sort of talents merged together, where I brought my tech, he brought his knowledge in tech, and we kind of made it all into one little, twisted baby.
Mm-hmm.
So but we had a really great time doing it. And so he was like, we should do this more often. And so I've been reaching out to friends who do art stuff, and we're trying to figure out better solutions for doing commentary and casting. But we had a really, really good time. And the idea of turning something like a card game and keeping it interesting to someone listening, or someone maybe tuning in for the first time that doesn't understand the game, and trying to make it, explain it in such a way that's entertaining, but also doesn't turn off people who maybe know how to play the game. It's not treating anyone, treating anyone like a baby. And so there's a fine line of that, and keeping it interesting and having fun with it, and being, having that energy right there. It was something that really appealed to me, and I had a really, really great time with it. I'm looking to do more of it. And as a matter of fact, I have an announcement. I don't know if it's cool if I talk about
Yeah,
my
go
announcement
right
now.
ahead.
So our friends at TCG Con in Houston, which is coming up on February 10th and 11th, have invited Liam and myself and Aaron down, the Lumineers down, to do commentary for their tournament down there at the convention down in Houston, which is coming up on the 10th and 11th. It is a Lorcana tournament, a big one, and the Trading Card Game Con in Houston, Texas. I will be doing commentary with the Lumineers for that event. And so that's going to be on PPG's Twitch channel on the 10th and 11th. So I'm very, very pumped for that. It's our first sort of foray into a bigger tournament now, and we're going to be there doing commentary for the whole thing. So hopefully people will tune in and watch it, and we'll give everyone a good time.
Yeah, I am excited to watch that. It's been nice to be able to have like these. While we are waiting, obviously, for the official OP tours, we still are getting these big events that we're able to see results from. So yeah, I am very excited. Casting has been a topic we've covered before. B Squared 24 is one of our good buddies, and he's interested in a lot of us. Just casting has always been something that's really cool. And Sean, I'll ask you this. Have you ever entertained the thought of casting? Because I think from the get go, I've told you, you have a pretty good voice for this. Have you ever entertained that, or have you more gone to podcasting?
Honestly, casting, I'm not sure I think I'd be okay at it, but it doesn't really draw me as much as actually being out there and competing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's one of those things where I enjoy playing the game. I have fun with it, but I will never be at the level of competition that you need to be for these bigger tournaments. Like, I love playing casually. I love doing draft tournaments and stuff like that. But when it comes to watching these people playing with literal, like, full foil decks or full enchanted decks, I'm like, yeah, I will never be there. So I enjoy talking about people doing that stuff and not actually doing it myself.
Yeah, that's yeah.
We're all sitting here patiently waiting for those full OP announcements to finally drop so we can start making travel arrangements if need be.
Yeah. Yeah, full rules, judge program, casting, if that's going to be a thing soon, hopefully.
That is the dream. Like, to be able to cast at one of those events would be so cool. And I don't know, for me, my dream, the ultimate dream, is for maybe the World Finals to be at Disney World, for
yes.
example, down in Orlando. Like, how cool would that be? It just makes a lot of sense. Like, maybe playing Lorcana in front of the castle. I don't know what they might do. But anyway, I think that would be really, really awesome. And it feels like there's so much synergy there between, like, we literally have a venue that represents so many of these characters in this game. Why don't we use it? I don't know. I'm just saying. I was, if anyone knows anyone out there that's, running this stuff, please get in touch with me. I've got ideas for you.
Also, from what I understand, that there are several places on property that can set up for like convention type things. So there's absolutely no reason you couldn't have a gigantic tournament there. And I believe Anaheim Convention Center is right there as well.
Yeah. Anaheim, right down the street from Disneyland.
Yeah, I mean, like Disney World in general, like there's so many, they have so many properties out there. I mean, Coronado Springs does a lot of conventions. Caribbean Beach, I think, has conventions. I mean, just their hotels have convention centers that are massive. But even doing events like in the parks, like they do cheerleading events at Hollywood Studios at the Indiana Jones stage. So it's there's so many places to do stuff out there that I know if they really want to blow this thing up, they can.
I mean, if you want to take a look at it, the NBA, when they were in COVID and had to play their end of the tournament, they just played it in a hotel's convention center. They set up
it was actually that was at the Wide World of Sports.
Oh, it was right.
Yeah.
Practice facilities were set up in there, I believe.
They all stayed at the Grand Floridian. They had it walled off. Literally, it was walled off, and it was just NBA players hiding at the Grand Floridian, and then they would be shuttled over to Wide World of Sports and play their official games there.
Yeah. Disney. I've always admired Swan and Dolphin. So if like they did it at Swan and Dolphin, I think that would be really cool. Obviously, it's not like directly related with Disney. It's a different. You'd probably know, Jack. It's
one of the few non-Disney owned properties on Disney property, if that makes sense.
Obviously, lots of options. One of the ideas, this has been Sean's idea for a long time, is to have a tournament on a Disney cruise. That would be really fun. Just
a little Castaway K1K, maybe.
Ooh, there you go.
I mean, you got to figure they have the Disney cruise liners, they have Disney resorts that they travel to. I think that would be just a really, really awesome event to take part in. And it's got Yu-Gi-Oh vibes, so why
not? Just don't bring your cards out on deck.
No, keep those inside where they don't blow away.
It could be like a Mortal Kombat type event where it's like they take you to the island and then the last man standing gets to leave. Everyone else has to stay on the island.
Yeah, you got it. See, you're starting to get it.
Or like I think we've had an idea of like go into Epcot and like play a game in each world and the showcase and stuff. That would be really fun.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, let's not forget that our friends across the pond over in Europe, there are several locations that Disney has over there that could be. Don't they have Disney Tokyo? Like
Tokyo Disney, Tokyo Disney Sea as well. You've got Shanghai,
Tokyo Paris,
Tokyo Paris,
or no, Disney Paris.
They just opened up a brand new Frozen area over in I think either Tokyo or Shanghai.
That's awesome.
That looks really, really cool too. I don't know. There's so much stuff. They've got the new Avengers campus over in Paris. That's what I was thinking of.
Definitely so many places that we could go. And, I guess selfishly, we hope that maybe the World Championships are in the U.S., but they have a ton of places. I think Paris would be really cool for the World Championship Disney it's not directly in downtown Paris, but you still have you have all those things there. The history would be amazing. But yeah, Jack, is there anything else you want to talk about casting? Any tips you have for folks that are looking to get into this space?
Yeah, I mean, really more than anything, for casting, I'd highly, highly recommend coming in with a partner because doing it by yourself, talking alone for a game which could last anywhere between, depending if you're playing an aggro deck, it could be between 20 minutes and an hour. I mean, it can get very, very tiring and you start running out of breath. So having someone to be able to bounce off of is huge. It works really well with myself and the Limiteers because they're so much more knowledgeable about the mechanics of the game. And I'm very knowledgeable about the actual characters and the collection and sort of the energy of the game. So we're able to kind of go back and forth. Basically, it's play-by-play and color commentary is the two different things. You want one of each. And being able to do that is a lot of fun. Don't stress too much about the equipment if you're going to be doing it. Just make sure, if anything, your microphone is pretty decent, and just have fun with it. And I mean, really practicing. I've been doing that now where I'll watch games and just commentate to myself, not broadcasting to anyone, just to get some practice in. And you start finding like your techniques, and sort of once you watch more games, you start finding rhythms of the games, and you can understand when things come out. And really, it's practice makes perfect, right? So the more you practice, the more you play with it, the more, like, the better you will become doing it. And yeah, just have fun with it. I mean, that's the key thing for me is in pretty much anything you do creatively. If you're interested and you have authentic passion for a game, a property, anything you might be talking about, that comes across when you're doing casting or when you're doing broadcasting or podcasting. And the internet and people in general are really good at sniffing out inauthentic people. And so when you have like, oh, here's someone that very clearly was an Instagram person who was just hired because they had a lot of followers talking about a product, okay, they don't care about it, and very, very quickly you can realize it. Whereas me, I will get into the nitty gritty and talk about all these different characters holding ropes in Lorcana, and I'm very much into this thing. And so, and I think that comes across very easily the more you listen to people. And so, being authentic and being knowledgeable on something and actually speaking intelligently on it and having fun with it, that is the key. So just absorb as much as you can about whatever topic you want to talk about, and be able to explain it. Like, I always, when I do this stuff, I always imagine I'm explaining it to my 10-year-old nephew. And so, he's smart, but it's like, okay, let me kind of explain some, maybe the finer details, or like maybe gloss over stuff that's really not horribly important, not like the real nitty gritty stuff. It's like, okay, we'll get to that later. But anyway, those are some tips for you. Yeah, but just have fun with it is more than anything.
Awesome. Yeah. So if any of our listeners are interested in casting, take those, find your partner, and I guess something that I've always seen people do is just go find recorded games on YouTube and just practice casting over those. It's a great way to just be able to start to see these lines that come out and all that. So yeah.
Yeah, and also watching other people's stuff and seeing what you like for them, and like, oh, could I incorporate that into stuff I do? Like, that's big. I mean, obviously not blatantly stealing, but it's like, oh, if they're doing something neat with lore counters or showing off cards, like that kind of stuff is important. And so, find out what you like, and then other people might like that as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So, moving on from that, our final section of the podcast is our listener questions. And Jack, you've mentioned your holding rope cards, and one of the questions comes from Y Breezy, and he asked, which holding rope card is the best one and why?
Oh man, well, I mean, there's so many right now. I'm just kind of looking through a list. Like Flynn Rider's got a really good holding rope one. Rapunzel, I don't know if Rapunzel's counts because it's her own hair. So it's like, gifted artist, she's kind of hanging from the ceiling. So
you could make rope out of hair.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, technically, yeah. Like, there's horsehair. Anyway, right now, my favorite holding rope character. It's a new one, but there is a legendary Jim Hawkins that is coming out with Inklands. That is just him holding. I can't tell if he's holding two ropes or if he's just holding one rope and then maybe like a stick or something. But the fact is, a legendary rope holder. I mean, that's pretty huge. And so, and it's also Treasure Planet, which is just a fantastic movie. So, I think Jim Hawkins right now is my go-to. Jim Hawkins, Space Traveler. He's my chase card for Inklands when it comes out in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, you got to think there's going to be a legendary of him. It's begging for it at this point.
Oh no, there is a legendary.
I mean,
the
enchanted.
Oh yeah, enchanted. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, enchanted. Makes up my rarities. All right. So the next card comes from Twitter as well. It is Stephen Gettle, and he asks, as a park fan, Jack, which do you prefer, Disneyland or Disney World?
So I grew up as a Disney World kid. We would go out to Florida a whole lot more than we go out to Anaheim. And so, and now, like, as an adult, where I can fly myself out to places, I still think Disney World, with the 4 parks out there, just has so much more. I mean, there's something about Anaheim and Disneyland and walking in. I mean, like, this is where Walt walked. Like, this was Walt's park, and like seeing his apartment stuff.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I dig that. But something about like Hollywood Studios is my jam. I actually did the Walt Disney World College program back in the early 2000s. So walking around Hollywood Studios and seeing Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land, and even like the Tower of Terror, like the original Tower of Terror, which is still the best version of Tower of Terror, even though Mission Breakout is fantastic. But the original Tower of Terror is so good. I love that park, and I also do a lot of the Run Disney events now. That's my big thing. That was my midlife crisis, is I started running a whole bunch. And so all of the Run Disney events out in Orlando, you actually get to run through the theme parks. So they just brought it back to Anaheim, but they only do the marathon in Florida. And the marathon, you run through all 4 parks, which is really, really cool. But personally, I prefer Disney World over Disneyland. They're both great, but I still have not made it out to Disney Sea, which I understand is the best Disney park out in Tokyo. And so someday I'll make it out there and be able to make my final declaration of what is the best Disney park.
Hey, maybe we'll have a world championship out there and we'll all be able to make the trip.
I'm just saying, Ravensburger, if you need a caster to go out to Tokyo, I will gladly do that for you.
But yeah, our final question actually comes from Blake. I know you had a question that you drew up.
I do. Basically, I wanted to know, what kind of decks do you currently run, and is there a type of deck you would like to see in Lorcana?
Oh man, so right now, again, I play pretty casually. I've got an Amethyst Amber deck, an aggro deck that has been a lot of fun. It's done okay. It's fun to be able to drop, like on turn 3, drop like 2 Lilos and a Maleficent down, or a Maleficent down, and be like, oh, here's tons of lore. But running into steel is my nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Like sitting down and watching someone drop a steel card, it's like, well, I'm not winning this one. So that's pretty brutal. But that's been my go-to right now. Honestly, I've been more focused on the casting side of things right now. So I've been watching a lot of stuff as opposed to doing a lot of playing. And as far as upcoming decks, I mean, I love the weird sort of events. So I'm actually playing in a draft tomorrow, which will be my first draft. And I love the idea of doing multicolor decks and game breaking decks. That stuff's kind of fun. I'm excited to see a competitive Dalmatian deck, which I know is going to happen.
Yeah.
Someone's going to make a 100-card deck. And I like that stuff. Obviously the meta is the meta, and like things are like, right now Amethyst Ruby is like where it's at, but someone's going to find a counter to that, then someone will find a counter to that, and so forth and so on. And we watch that, we see how it goes. I'm never going to compete at that level, so I'm not as concerned with doing that kind of stuff. I like doing the fun stuff. Like right now I'm going through Dreamborn and I'm building up a rope holding deck. So
Yeah.
I'm into that kind of stuff. Also, like, does Tangle count? Because it's it's Flynn in her hair again.
I think it
hair
does.
is kind of a rope. I'm not sure. I'm just kind
In
of
set 1, we have Rapunzel using her hair as a lasso, and that's the most rope-like thing I can think of. So I think it counts.
There we go.
I think that's our answer.
Yeah. So, I like the fun decks. And, like, I'm thinking maybe when we get to expansion 4 or 5, we might get to the point where it's like, okay, you get 4 movies. It's like you can play All Little Mermaid, you can play Beauty and the Beast, and you can play Cinderella, and that's it. I want to get to that point when you start doing that kind of interesting stuff. And so I think that's what's got me excited about the future of Lorcana.
I would love to see a format like that. Just I believe a friend of ours has tried to do something like that. Our friend Knive from Knives Nerve Corner, he did a little thing where you could get 2 movies, but this was back when we only had 1 set. So if you got a certain movie, you just had 30 cards of 1 card for your deck. Like set 1, it would have been Treasure. If you got Treasure Planet, you got 30 John Silvers.
Wow. Yeah. Hey, we got an Atlantis card finally.
I did see that.
Just get Audrey Ramirez.
Yes, exciting.
Yeah. So I would love to see a format like that where you just do like a double feature, pick 2 movies, and have all the cards from those movies.
Oh my God, we just got a Milo Thatch card. Holy cow. Sorry, I just opened Twitter and screen rant.
The curse of recording stuff during release reveal season.
Honestly.
Yeah. We're certainly in that point now where it's like we're starting to see the big drops coming out. So we got a Kita deck or a Kita card as well.
Yeah, we just got 7 new Atlantis cards.
Oh gee, yeah.
On
Speaking of
Screen
Atlantis,
Rant.
here we go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we got a lot.
We got a Milo Shift card.
Yeah, it looks pretty good too. I'm happy with it as an Emerald player.
That is gonna be wild.
Well, I guess we'll have to cover them next time.
Yeah, next episode.
It's a Floodborn Milo, King of Atlantis. Oh my God.
Spoiler.
Spoiler.
Or not so spoiler.
Not so spoiler. It's already out there.
Bleep it all out. Bleep it all out.
Well, yeah, that was episode 32 of the Glimmer Gang podcast. Jack, we want to say thank you again for hopping on with us. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so thank you again for having me on. I really do appreciate it, guys. You can find me on Twitter right now. I'm Jack_P over on Twitter. I stream right now about once a week, usually Sundays at twitch.tv/Jack Pattillo. That's Pattillo. I'm also over at Inside Gaming at Rooster Teeth. So we do twitch.tv/Rooster Teeth 3 days a week. Check us out over there, or insidegaming.live. And then catch me on February 10th and 11th with the Illumateer streaming trading card game con. Whoa, say that 3 times fast. Down in Houston, Texas, streaming the Lorcana tournament down there on PPG's Twitch channel. So I'm very, very pumped for that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, yeah, again, thank you for hopping on. And thank you for everyone for listening today. Make sure you follow us everywhere at Glimmer Gang Pod. And we hope you all enjoyed, and Glimmer on. I knew you were going to do that.